Thank you so much, Luanda. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for this iTOOsday. We're going to be discussing the psychology of cybercrime, as Luanda has said. So let's get into it. All right. So generally, when we think of the internet, it's about the daily applications and the websites that we use, such as our email, Google, social media, etc. And the internet has certainly transformed how we communicate, how we learn, we work, we manage our finances, and even online shopping. It's really made our lives more convenient, and the world is more interconnected. So what we tend not to think about so much is the human or the psychological side, and that is what is the actual impact of the internet on our lives, and how does it affect our cognitive behavior and the way that we interact socially online. So the one area that we need to think more carefully about is how does it work and how does it make us feel? So what does that mean? So how much of ourselves do we actually put out there that can be accessed by these cyber criminals who will use the information to their own advantage? And let's be honest, at some point or another, we've all been guilty of wanting those likes, those comments, and almost that sense of validation that comes from being recognized online. And cyber criminals are very aware of this. They know that it is a weakness, and they understand how it works in this context. So when we think of a cyber criminal, I'm sure this is the usual image that comes to mind. This teenager in a dark hoodie sitting in front of a screen with green coding, sort of like a faceless individual. And this is what's been portrayed to us through, different media, through movies, anything that's to do with hacking. This is usually what we think of. However, that is a misconception, because in this day and age, a hacker can be absolutely anybody. But research has shown that they are usually young males with a talent for IT and computer systems who are of above average intelligence, which is something that we can see with some of the hacking cases that we get. So as much as we don't condone the hackers' behavior, you have to give it to them that some of their examples are quite intelligent. They're well educated. They do not usually have a low socioeconomic status. They view hacking and associated cybercrime as a way of gaining respect. And the thing is, they don't really view their actions as being ethically wrong. So it's rather the fault of the victim for falling for it. And it becomes a matter of victim blaming. So what motivates cybercriminals to do what they do? Okay. So they're motivated by a variety of factors, and the most obvious one is obviously financial, because if the money is there and it's easy and it's a way for them to do it, then why not? Espionage refers to the theft of confidential information. So you see sometimes companies engaging in corporate espionage against their competitors. Then you have revenge. So let's say some people were in a relationship and it ended quite acrimoniously, and now they want to get revenge on the other. They will go ahead and engage in cyber stalking or posting slanderous comments about the other person online. Then we have the aspects of war and social and political. So for nuisance, these are hackers who are motivated for no other reason, basically, than just to cause chaos and destruction. And facilitation refers to cyber attackers who use proxies and other systems to attack their final target. So basically, their first attack acts as a smokescreen for their final result that they try to achieve. So, as I said, financial gain, it's a significant motivator. And cyber criminals engage in this as a means of making money. So this can include stealing financial information, selling stolen data on the dark web, or even holding this data for ransom. I mean, and why wouldn't they? Because number one, they can go undetected. And number two, even if they are caught, what are the actual consequences for them? The digital landscape is developing at quite a rapid pace. But particularly in South Africa, our legislative landscape hasn't evolved to keep up with this sort of development. So we do have the Cybercrimes Act, which was signed into law in 2021. However, the chances of successfully prosecuting somebody for cybercrime remain slim. And even if you are a victim of cybercrime, if you go to your local police station and say, hey, I was hacked, money's been stolen, the cops are just going to look at you with a blank stare because, like, what must they do? Okay, so cyber criminals target businesses and individuals with the intention of stealing their sensitive information. According to a McAfee report, cybercrime costs the global economy a whopping $600 billion annually. So that just gives you, an insight at the scope of, what we are facing in terms of cybercrime. And it can be very lucrative and thrilling for those who engage in it. So if anybody has watched the series Money Heist, this is sort of a virtual application of that. So for example, in 2016, a hacker group stole $81 million from a bank in Bangladesh by gaining access to the bank's computer systems. So they were eventually caught and they were asked, why did you do it? And they said, no other motivation than to make money and the challenge of actually hacking into the bank system. All right. So here's one of our favorite things that we deal with on the cyber side, ransomware. Okay. So ransomware is really one of the biggest threats for large companies because it can really affect critical infrastructure. And restarting from a backup doesn't always work all of the time. It can take quite a lot of effort, and you can go into weeks and months in trying to retrieve the information. So an example of this is that a government agency in Germany was hit by a ransomware attack almost 2 years ago, and they're still not up to 100% running speed in terms of their operations. So nowadays, hackers don't just threaten regarding the data that they want to extract. They also threaten to publish the data or sell it on the dark web if the ransomware isn't paid. And usually they request the ransom to be paid in Bitcoin. And, what is the main thing that will happen if a company is targeted by ransomware? It's the customers or their third parties or service providers. It becomes an issue of trust. You lose the trust. So here's an example of a ransomware screen that popped up on a computer that was actually affected by ransomware. And you can see how the hacker group actually puts it together. So these groups, they operate on a level of organized crime. And the term that is used is they offer crime as a service. And they operate more professionally than some companies do. Because if you look there, it says how to buy Bitcoin, contact us. They even have their own customer service going on. So really, these are very professional hackers. How to negotiate. And they are very particular about the quality management of the ransomware that they put out there. So what is the dark web? So this I've decided to discuss for information purposes, because when we talk about the dark web, most people see it as some kind of fantasy or science fiction place that just exists without us actually understanding what it is. So the internet or World Wide Web, as we know it, is categorized into 3 different parts. The first is the surface web. So this is the part of the internet that we use every single day. It consists of indexed web pages. And what that means is that these websites are searchable. So anything that is publicly available. The next layer that we have is called the deep web. So these are any websites that require a login. So for example, company intranet, membership sites, internet banking. These will all fall under the deep web. And after that, this is where we get the dark web. So the dark web is only accessible by using a Tor router. These are not indexed search engines, And the dark web basically allows you to operate under the cloak of invisibility because you basically become anonymous in your action on the dark web. So what is the Tor browser? So Tor stands for the onion router. And it was given that name because just like an onion, it has a lot of layers. And the Tor router basically provides these layers of encryption for you to go and browse the dark web anonymously. So what happened is the United States Navy originally designed the browser to protect sensitive US government communications. So today, Tor continues to be used by the government, but it's now an open source multi-platform browser available to the public. Here's an example of websites that you can find on the dark web. So Tor is often associated with the dark net and criminal activity, which it is. There are lots of illegal services and products that are available. So here you can see they've got hitmen for hire, people selling oxy, hacked bank accounts. These are part of the illegal things that you can find. However, it's also used for legitimate purposes. So this is a screenshot of the CIA's Tor website. They've basically designed this dark web page for whistleblowers to come forth, for people who want to report illegal activity, but they don't want to be targeted by very dangerous criminal networks. Because just like how they operate with their own cyber division, the criminals also have their own cyber division and can basically detect a tip-off or a whistleblower. So for purposes of protection, they also operate on the dark web. Okay, here's a video that I want to share.
Hey Serena!
Yeah?
What you got in your bag?
It's my new heels for graduation! Good morning guys! Guess what day it is? It's my birthday!
Yes, I did. Can you hear? Oh, okay. Oops.
Hey, where are these charges coming from?
So the video that we've just seen is how hackers go about stealing personal information. And this is sensitive financial information like credit card numbers, bank account details, and personal identification details. And once the cyber criminals have gained access to this information, they can use it for a variety of purposes, not just limited to stealing money, but making fraudulent purchases and selling the information on the black market. And identity theft can have devastating consequences for the victim. In addition to financial gains, cybercriminals will also use this information to profit indirectly. For example, on this slide, you can see that they can target companies to steal valuable intellectual property and trade secrets. Because has anybody ever come across the original recipe for Coke? Let's be honest, that is one of the best protected trade secrets out there in the market. And if somebody were to get hold of it, it could have devastating consequences for the Coca-Cola company. Another one is KFC, 11 herbs and spices. Colonel Sanders never revealed that, and I don't think we ever will know. The next aspect that motivates cybercriminals is obviously the thrill and the challenge. So personal satisfaction is another motivator. Hackers are driven by breaking into secure systems because it's an ego boost for them. It makes them feel skilled and knowledgeable. And when they successfully exploit the system, it brings a sense of achievement, which can be addictive to them. And, even if hackers don't mean to cause any harm, their actions can result in significant financial losses and privacy violations for individuals and businesses. In this instance, a hacker by the name of Cyberzeist took control of the main FBI website a few years ago, and he released information on over 50 agents. So, he called their bluff. They didn't comply. He ended up releasing this information on the dark web and on Twitter, which was their FBI data agent names, encrypted passwords, and their email addresses. And speculatively, we didn't confirm it, but Cyberzeist was thought to be a 15-year-old boy. So there we go.
We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
So anybody who's, studied cyber hacking would come across this group called Anonymous, and they are hacktivists. So what exactly is a hacktivist? They are a cyber group that exposes corruption and promotes social justice. So they are motivated by an ideology or a desire for revenge. They use their skills to promote a particular social or political agenda. If anybody can recall the movie V for Vendetta, it's sort of based around those lines about what they try to achieve with their hacktivism. So they may target governments, corporations, or other organizations that they believe are engaging in unethical or illegal activities. And how they do this is they go about using tactics such as web-based defacement, DDoS attacks, which are distributed denial of service attacks, and data breaches to basically expose the targets and promote their own message. So in the video that we've just seen, Anonymous, they use the internet since the invasion of Ukraine, and there was a steady stream of disruptive cyber attacks against public services, both in the Ukraine and in Russia. And they've gained, and they've taken responsibility for doing that. So if the website is actually defaced in any kind of institution or government, so this one is particularly for Anonymous, this is what it will look like. It basically renders the website unusable. And it says, so this one is, your website is defaced to protest injured people in Catalonia. And we do not forget, we do not forgive and expect us. Quite ominous. Okay. Moving on to the concept of social engineering. So what is social engineering? It's something that we are all subjected to on a daily basis. Even if we don't know it, we are participating on an unconscious level. It's the way that we interact with different forms of digital tools, websites, social media. What influences us, and how secure do we really think we are online? This is the quote that I came across, which I think basically sums up social engineering in a nutshell. And it says, amateurs hack systems, professionals hack people. More than 90% of cyber breaches are caused by human error. So basically, we humans, we are the weakest link in the cybersecurity chain. Security breaches are not just a technical problem, but a psychological and a people problem, because at the end of the day, it relates to behavior. Computers may be the weapons that we use on a daily basis, but the perpetrators of cybercrime and the victims are humans. Social engineering. It's the art of manipulating people to give away their personal information or paying money to scams. And at some point or another, we've all come across some scam that we've been a target of. And it's about identifying how do we respond when we are faced with these things. This is an example of a social media scam that was on the then Twitter. So what has happened here is that hackers have actually taken over the accounts of Bill Gates and Elon Musk, very well-known public figures. And social media is an avenue that they use to reach large numbers of people simultaneously. So it could be a politician or a celebrity's account that they have hacked. And this was actually a Twitter Bitcoin scam in 2020. They took over these accounts, and you can see that the language that they have used is, I'm giving back to the community. You send $1,000, I send you back $2,000, only going for 30 minutes, enjoy. And the use of the language is actually very important because it becomes emotive. When you read this psychologically, how does it affect you? If you think that this is a real account, you will be enticed to act on these instructions and pay over the money or pay over the Bitcoin with the expectation that you will receive something in return. Hackers play on human emotions. They are very aware of what they are doing with their victims. So they use the emotion to make people click on links or do certain actions without thinking about it. And the main thing that they use is financial fear or reward. So meaning you're going to be receiving money, or conversely, that your accounts have been blocked or compromised. And people are much more influenceable when they consider someone as a figure of authority. And hackers are aware of this authority principle. They pretend to be from a trusted authority or company to make you act on what they are doing. As we can see on this screen, here's an example of some scams. The first one is Netflix. We all use Netflix. It has come through and says, congratulations, a Netflix reward. Get your $50 Netflix reward. But if you look at the reply to address, it says info@foodstampnews.com. That has nothing to do with Netflix. The next one, Standard Bank. Payment transaction from EasyPay was made to your account. Click log on. Again, if we look at the from address, it says at irstandardbank.co.za. But if you are in a hurry, you won't recognize it and you won't see it. You'll think that this is a legitimate email from the bank. The next one is from the Australian Tax Authority, tax refund notification. So where the words are circled, you can see that the spelling is incorrect. The word appreciate, department, submitting, these are all red flags that you should look out for to see that it's a scam. And for our purposes in South Africa, if something comes through from SARS, automatically we start getting panicky and wondering what on earth is going on, because you don't want to mess with SARS. At the bottom, I've put in 2 examples of smishing. So we can see here, the one on my extreme right says your Visa or debit card is temporarily locked. And the next one is unusual activity on your account and your access is being blocked. So if you get a message like this and you are in a hurry or you're panicking and you don't take the time to actually think about whether or not this is real, you are now going to feel upset and anxious that something is happening on your financial information, on your accounts, that you won't be able to access your money. And this is where the fear gets generated for you to act on these scams. The most recent information that we've received from SABRIC, which is the South African Banking Risk Information Center, about cybercrime is that cybercriminals have stolen over 740 million rand from unsuspecting users through digital banking fraud in 2022. And this was done via banking applications and internet banking, which are things that we use on a daily basis. So the cyber criminals took advantage of their victims using these platforms to engage in unlawful activities, and subsequently it's had a negative impact on the financial industry. So they would pose as employees calling from the bank or service providers. They would tell you that there's something wrong with your account, using social engineering skills to manipulate you to disclose sensitive information. And this is how that they would actually get in. Oh, I apologize. I hit a technical glitch. Okay, that video doesn't seem to want to play. My apologies. Just going to move on. So the next thing to discuss is the role of AI, which is artificial intelligence, and deep fake technology that is used in manipulating users. So in this day and age, AI is rife. We see it everywhere, and it's making it easier for cyber criminals to launch sophisticated attacks. So for example, we have AI-powered bots that can be used to automate phishing attacks, and it makes it easier to target large groups of people with very personalized approaches. The AI bots can also analyze your social media accounts and gain information. This is an example of an AI phishing bot that was available on the dark web. So just like how we have legitimate chat GPT that makes it easier, this is an alternatively designed chat GPT tool that is used for writing malicious code, creating undetectable malware, creating phishing pages, hacking tools, you name it. There's something for everybody. And cyber criminals are really taking advantage of our reliance on technology, on the development of AI, and this is how they go about spamming and hacking and basically perpetrating cyber fraud on unsuspecting victims.
This is not Kanye West. It's a deepfake. And so is this and this. Deepfakes and AI are on the rise right now, and they're getting easier for everyday people to use. Like, this isn't Tom Cruise, but it's pretty damn convincing. And this guy's built an audience of over 3.4 million followers on TikTok, and he's even collaborating with other creators. And even here in our office, the AI from Snapchat filters has gotten really unbelievable. Like, I'm not crying right now. I'm actually actively smiling. We're living in a wild time where people can be saying things and it's not actually even them. I mean, creators and celebrities could actually license their faces to other companies to build YouTube channels with them that they're not even in. So what do you think? Would you watch a channel that was hosted by a deepfake? Or are you already watching a channel that's hosted by a deepfake?
Yeah. So, deepfake is also on the rise. Not everything that you see is actually real. So the video that I've just shared, this one is for entertainment purposes. The individuals will enhance their social media presence by gaining followers as influencers, promoting themselves and their personal brands. It may seem like something fun that they can engage in. And, for those who rely on social media for an income, this is the way to generate more for them as well. Because, who doesn't want to see celebrities engaging in everyday kind of activities? It can even be used in advertisements.
This
but
is
then
not.
There's the flip side of the coin of deep fake as well.
It got me thinking about my full-time employees and their ability to survive on $8 an hour in New York City. And foremost in all of our minds has been the loss and the grief felt by the people of Orlando. Most of us don't get our health care through the marketplace. We get it through our job or through Medicare or Medicaid. And what you should know is that thanks to the Affordable Care Act, your coverage is better today than it was before. Women can get free checkups, and you can't get charged more just for being a woman. To give his employees together to pass a common, there's a bill that would boost America's very, very hard times.
Some progress, at least within the small confines of the legal community. I think it's real important.
Here we go. President Barack Obama, when you're giving a speech, make sure you use a lot of pauses.
America's businesses have created 14.5 million new jobs over 75 straight months.
We're developing technology. Every technology can be used in some negative way, and so we all should work towards making sure that it's not going to happen. And even one of the interesting directions is that once you know how to create something, you know how to reverse engineer it. And so you can, and so one could create methods for identifying edited videos versus real videos.
Okay. So as we all know, that was the deepfake of former US President Barack Obama. And where the deepfake is used in a more serious context, how does this affect us psychologically if we believe that what we are seeing is real? And especially, it can manipulate the trust of the viewer. So in this video, Obama, in inverted commas, was addressing issues of social justice, healthcare, the economy, which is all very well and good. But what happens when it's something more sinister, where it's used, to facilitate propaganda and fake news and, just spread enmity and lies about exactly what is going on? This is where we actually need to apply our minds and think for ourselves, what is actually happening.
It got me thinking.
So essentially, cybercrime isn't about computers. It's about behavior. The cyber risk landscape has changed, and as such, our behavior needs to also evolve. What we believe leads to emotion. This emotion leads to behavior, and behavior over time leads to habit. And many cyber attacks are successful because cyber criminals misuse human interaction online. What is the thought process of individuals, like humans like us, that make us vulnerable to cyber attacks? Firstly, I'm not important and no one is looking for me. So this is not true. The amount of small to medium businesses that get impacted or hit by cyber attacks is quite high, and nobody should be under the misconception that they are going to fly under the radar for a cyber attack. You need to take cybersecurity seriously. I don't have anything anyone could want. So for a cyber criminal, there's always something that they want. It could either be money, it could be information, they could end up blackmailing you by finding something on your social media profiles. And I can't stop them even if I wanted to. I think that it's important for all of us to realize that our behavior impacts cybercrime, it impacts how we interact online, and we need to be aware of these different motivations and psychologically how we can do things to actually prevent cybercrime from happening and escalating. What can we do? Identify risky cyber behavior with ourselves as individuals and within our companies. Have system backups and consider cloud storage. Have good cyber insurance in place that meets the needs of the business. And this I can't overemphasize enough, having dealt with numerous cyber claims. And in that regard, you need to inform the insurer immediately in the event of a cyber attack. Practice good cyber hygiene. Keep your patching up to date and implement software updates, because this really helps to close some of the loopholes that are there. Access to professionals to respond to disasters. So this can be, legal, cybersecurity, because in the event of a cyber attack, it's not only your systems that are impacted, it's also the reputation of the company and POPI breaches, reporting to regulators, which need to be addressed. Be aware. Don't believe everything online. I think it's imperative that we need to have a discerning attitude when we interact with things online. If something seems fishy, it usually is. Take a minute to pause and analyze the information, especially if you feel that it's impacting you on a personal level. Question it before you click on a link. Human firewalls. Humans are the first line of defense to cyber attacks. Everything comes through us first. Besides, pure network breaches such as ransomware, everything else would come through a human first. And last but not least, when in doubt, make a phone call. If you're receiving an email that says, I've changed my banking details, don't pay into this account any longer, and this is not something that you've discussed with your client or with a third party at the inception of your relationship, just make a phone call and say, I've received this email. Did you change your banking details? And I think that by implementing all of these behaviors, we can really help to minimize the impact of cybercrime on ourselves as individuals and on our businesses as a whole. Thank you. So we have time for questions. Anything that anybody wants to ask?
Wow, thank you a lot, Sadia. That was an absolutely eye-opening exploration into the psychology of cybercrime. We always touch on these things, the motivations, some of the scary tactics that are being used, and hope that our brokers and our clients stay aware and don't fall victim. But unfortunately, we do see that with the advent of more creative technology, artificial intelligence being the foremost of those, we're seeing a lot of these scams becoming more sophisticated, a lot more believable, and more victims each and every single day. And that's why we are here as iTOO, and to offer you a product that can be that safety net when things do go wrong. But yes, thanks, Sadiap. That was very great. I haven't seen many questions in the chat. If you guys do have questions, let us know. I think there's something in the Q&A.
Have to ask clients for bank confirmation letter enforced by. Can someone hack this? Everything is hackable.
I mean, Paul, I think for you, when you're asking for sensitive information to your clients, there are ways to do that a little bit more securely. There's ways to verify the information, because the hack will typically happen either on your client side in terms of their emails being compromised, or on your side if your emails are compromised, someone is watching that space. So encrypt those documents if you can. Use a secured sharing platform as a way to transfer those sensitive information, and also verify the details once you have received before you have to do any payments. Pick up the call and say, hey, we've received this letter. It says that your bank details have changed or updated. Can I confirm that you are now a Capitec client rather than an FNB client, as an example, just so that you have that security that what you're transacting on is true and accurate. What could lead a claim repudiation for a cyber claim? I mean, there's quite a lot of things. It's very nuanced. It does depend on the circumstance. We can't give you any one answer to that question. It will really depend on what happened, as part of the circumstance. What we can say on the corporate side is that we do have a list of minimum requirements. These are issued upfront in the quoting stage. It's a way for you as a broker and your client to understand that at a bare minimum, these are some of the controls that you should have in place. And then from there, that, you at least have a baseline security posture that is acceptable to us as the insurer, and we will then be able to look at those claims that potentially come in. Each circumstance again will trigger a different way of us to respond on that claim, and there are other exclusions on the policies that do come in as standard. But yeah, to answer your question a bit more specifically, we'll need maybe a specific scenario to talk through that.
We also have a question from Ferguson. How does the iTOO policy respond in these claim scenarios mentioned?
Which ones?
It would depend on the type of cover.
Yeah, it does depend on type of cover. It's really a matter of understanding the triggers of the policy. So on the corporate side, the trigger is a network breach. So some sort of unauthorized access, some sort of hack into your network, some sort of unauthorized use, because it could be an internal person using that network in a malicious manner. That would be the first trigger on the policy. So depending on that being the trigger, we will then do the investigation to see what has been impacted, what extent of the policy they need to respond. Has there been a ransomware or malware introduced into the network? Do we need to engage further in that? So it does really nuance, as I've mentioned. There isn't any one single answer, to that question.
How can one verify whether or not they are viewing a deepfake video?
Vooks, I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to that. I don't know, Sadat, do you have? Yeah, do you wanna go ahead?
Okay, how can one verify whether or not they are viewing a deepfake video? So sometimes it's not very easy to actually ascertain, but through the research that I've done, is that when the person is talking or moving around, you can see the slight glitching on their face. And if they move towards a side profile, that is when you can actually see who the real person is. because the deepfake video usually works only on the front of the person's face. So when they are talking, sometimes you can see that the mouth seems quite wooden, and you can see it glitches. Like I've got the background behind me at the moment, but if I move around like this, you can see that it's sort of glitching in the back. So it's not entirely foolproof, but these are some of the things that you can check to see whether or not it is a deepfake video.
Yes, no, we understand we're both on mute. We're just switching over. Thanks, everyone. I believe there's a question from is it Kieran around sharing some claim stats. If you get in touch with us, Kieran, just drop us a mail. I'll leave my email in the chat. Please send us. We can share some stats that we have worked on. There's a lot of claims that we're seeing currently in the market. A lot of which have been around, business email compromise. Unfortunately, again, another way to try and scam you by phishing, and ransomware is again something seeing on the rise. So we're happy to share some numbers that we have on our side. So just drop me a mail there, and we'll get back to you on that. Great. I believe if there's no further questions, we can close off today's session. Before we do, just want to remind you again that we